This is Lori Boucher with Painted Heart Market. Thank you for joining me today on video 4 of my Merry Christmas sign. If you haven't seen the other videos, please look those up first, or you may visit my website, paintedheartmarket.com, to view all the details, the videos, and purchase the stencils used in this project. Now let's get started.
Our last task is going to be to remove those original stencils that we put, and I have a couple of cool tools that I'm going to use today. One is just a pair of tweezers. They're kind of long and they got teeny tiny little tip. I actually use these for my serger to get lots of thread untied. And then this is just a really long, like a hat pen or a corsage pen. And I'm going to use the same process. Be very careful with this part. Try to make sure you're not doing things too quickly. And in essence, what I'm going to do is find the corner of that letter, one of those original stencils we put down for Merry Christmas. And I'm just going to gently lift it up. Hopefully, let me move my hand a little bit. You can see what I've done. I just pricked it a little bit and then started lifting it up a little bit, and you'll see. I don't want to stick my pen too far down in the white paint because I'm going to start to pull it off the board. So after I get a nice little corner going, I'm going to use my tweezers, and I'm just going to very carefully pull my stencil. Trying to keep my hand out of the way so you can see it come off. This is my favorite part. It's like those home decorator shows when they have the big reveal at the end. You get to see what your effort was. And look how nice and crisp that S is on our sign. It really looks sharp. It's going to show up well from the road. Let me show you again here on the A. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way so you can see. I'm just getting right here at the corner, a place that I can easily see an edge. Move my camera just a little so you can see me better. And I'm just looking to lift up that piece of blue. All I'm trying to do is lift up the blue. Once I get a little nub of it up, it's all with the tweezers. So I've got a little corner there. You can see it in my tweezers. And here I'm going to pull off this A. Again, I want to go slowly, especially around corners and things. Like this A has a few little tips and corners and sharp edges. I just want to take my time and pull the letters off. There you go. And there's my A. And I'm just going to continue on down the sign, pulling up each of these letters using that same process. It's going to take a little bit of time. If you see anything where your paint is pulling up, you might want to just rub it with your finger. I saw a little bit there. We are actually going to, and this M, look, it's a little bit stubborn. So this extra little piece up here, I'm just going to grab the corner of it and start another little pull with my tweezers. It's a temptation to want to just prove I can do it and keep going, but you know, I really want my sign to look good, and that's more important than getting it in one swoop. So I'm just following along the pattern, being careful not to injure the paint area, the red area around this M. A little bit gentle, gentle, gentle there on the end. It looks like a... So here I am just continuing on with the M. It was a little tricky because it has these little feet on the end, and I just want to be careful not to just jerk it off and end up peeling that red paint off. So there's my M. It also looks crystal clear. I'm just going to continue on down the sign and stop the video while I'm doing that, and then I'll start the video again when I pick up the small letters. Well, we have just one more section of our stencils to remove, and that is the blue stencil we put at the top to say Merry Christmas. So I'm using the same method as I did with the big block letters. I'm just pulling up a corner of the stencils. It is good to just work as slowly as you can. It seems like it would be fun to just rip it off, but you don't want the paint to lift up. So just take a little pinch at a time, get it going, move it around. Anytime you get to a place that's kind of curly, it can cause just a little bit of heartache. So you may have to take your pen and just kind of even outline it a little bit. It just helps break that paint loose a little. Right there, I've got a little spatula thing here that sometimes I use. You could use the tip of a razor blade too. That would do it. I just saw a little place that looked like it wanted to pull up, so I wanted to try and deal with it before it started having a problem. So again, I'm just lifting it up, slow and easy. This word is curvy, so it's going to take a little more patience on my part. Anytime I see that I'm getting a little more paint than I wanted, I just need to get in there with a little pen head, the tip of the pen, and just run it along there. And it'll start to loosen that letter up a little bit for me. What I don't want to do is pick up more of the paint than I want. So I'm just going to keep working on these letters. Like I said, the curly takes just a little bit more patience. You're seeing I'm having to do a little more coaching of that letter with it. I could have also gotten the red a little bit heavier up there, and sometimes that can cause a little bit of a problem. My center wanted to come out just a little bit, so I just took my pen and held it down, and that made it nice and clean there. Pulling on around, move my arm out of the way so you can see. And so there's the first piece of my M. I have just a little bit of red like there that's bled over, and I just removed it with my pen. I'm going to lift up another little section of this same letter. I'm still working on this M. Get my tweezers in there. And if you can kind of keep that same thought of almost pulling across, you'll help yourself a little bit on this process too, instead of so much of pulling up. It tends to peel better. Now there's the little center of my loop on my M it wanted to pick up. So I'm getting my tweezers in there and just going to push that down a little bit. Sometimes the best thing to hold it is your finger, which is what I'm using right now. And just keep pulling. And it looks like that little piece came off. It's actually, this particular one kind of stuck to my finger. So I'm going to put it right back in its place. It's just a tiny bit of paint. And I'm going to put a sealer over it in a few minutes, and that'll make it stick. So it just makes that little loop look right. And I'm just continuing to lift this letter up. The timing on pulling the stencils off, you don't want to do it while it's too wet, but you also don't want to let it dry too long, because it tends to pull up the paint a little easier if it's too dry, like it's already made its mind up. So I would say just kind of do it all in one process. Don't leave it for 2 or 3 days and then try to come back and get these letters up, because they're definitely going to give you a little bit of trouble. I'm going to actually move around to the other side so I can continue lifting these letters, and then hopefully you'll be able to see me here working on this letter E. And same technique, I'm just going to pick up a little bit, start to pull it around, try to remember to pull across. I'm a little bit concerned here with this part of the E, so I'm going to help it a little bit with my pen tip. And it is behaving very nicely. And there is my E. The little bit of cursive or curly in these letters can really, it just doesn't always want to pull as clean, and you just have to give it a little more care. And it's not the time that you want to see your work messed up here at the end. And I want to make sure that that does not get a little bit crazy, so I'm gathering it up there. It's my R, it's got that little extra swirl, and a little corner of my R stencil stayed in there, so I'm just going back in and removing it. And I've got a second R here, so I'm sure it's going to behave much like the first one. I'm going to have to give it a little extra coaching. It's this curl here, this one right here, that I'm trying to be careful of. It's a beautiful part of the letter, but it's also a part that is going to want to easily tear itself. So I would like it not to tear itself. So I've got to, again, just help it along a little bit. Let's see, little corner wanted to stay in there again, but now it's popping out. And I'm going to put my finger down right there and kind of peel with my finger, holding the rest of it intact. And I just moved it back into place. And then last but not least, I've got this little Y up here. I like how the Christmas trees added a little more color to the sign. It's not just red and white, it's got that little bit of green there. And just trying to be careful there with the Y. I can see right there it's wanting to act a little bit unfriendly. If you were to pull up too much red, you know, a good solution is to take a little thin brush and just go right over that area and pencil it, just paint it back in. It's not ideal, but you're not wanting to start the sign again either, so. And you see I'm kind of working that O where I'm holding down the inside circle on that O with my finger and then pulling it up. And slow is always good because you can kind of see what the letter is doing. If you just rip it off really fast, it's done and then you're just kind of sad. So a little bit of cleanup there, but in all, it all came off really smoothly. And just a quick look at the sign. There it is at the top with the Mary, with the trees, the Christmas. And I'm going to go outside and put it up by my front door just so you can see it. Before I actually use this sign outside though, I am going to spray it with a matte finish clear. I'm not going to use a gloss. I kind of want this to look old, and if it's glossy, the lights hit it and people might not be able to read it effectively from the road. So I'm going to use a matte finish. It'll just do a good job of protecting the paint on the wood. All right, I'll end up here in a minute with a picture.
Well, thank you for joining me today. Again, this is Lori Boucher with Painted Heart Market. I hope you've enjoyed making this sign along with me. If you're interested in purchasing the stencil kit that I used in this project, please visit my website, paintedheartmarket.com. Thank you.